They thought the humans were retreating, until they noticed every one of them was smiling. Across the cold deck of the observation cruiser, Virex Ultima, silence reigned. High Marshal Krazek of the Sular Dominion leaned forward, his narrow fingers, clasped behind his back, 4 pupils dilated with casual boredom. "Primitive world," he muttered. "They haven't even breached 5th phase sublight." Around him, junior analysts and tactical overseers nodded. Dozens of screens displayed Earth, its cities, oceans, skies, encased within a temporary gravity mesh. Civilian activity was frozen. Atmospheric disruptors had jammed all communications. Phase 1 of planetary compliance, complete. "They've gone still," said Lieutenant Karax, peering at a telemetry feed. "No resistance, no countermeasure, no signal." "No surprise," Krazek replied. "Their species is disorganized, tribal, emotionally driven, as expected." But then something moved. One figure, small, 2-legged, lean, dashed across a cracked highway in North America's eastern sector. A second followed, then 10, then hundreds. Humans, suddenly, everywhere, running. At first, it was disorganized, sporadic, strange. Then it became synchronized. From space, the movement was surreal, like fire ants spilling from the cracks of a shattered stone. Urban centers lit up with kinetic motion, hills, tunnels, forests. The humans ran through all of it. Their formation defied logic. No straight lines, no drills, no weapons. And yet, it had rhythm, a beat. "Are they fleeing?" Kyrax frowned. "No," said one of the Sular tech adepts, voice brittle. There's no pattern of retreat. They're not heading toward bunkers or transit hubs. They're running toward open terrain. Toward us." Krazek narrowed his eyes. "Show me." Their faces. A technician brought up facial scans from drone sweeps. The images were processed in silence. The bridge went cold. They were smiling. All of them. Commander Lynn Alvarez, Terran Ground Protocol, didn't stop when her boot cracked through the dry tarmac. Dust hit her visor, but she didn't blink. She ran with precision, 10 paces per second, exactly 2 meters per stride. Behind her, 12 others matched the pace, breath in sync. Every tendon, every heartbeat calibrated through a neural link, a voice echoed in her earpiece. Calm, familiar. Final trigger in 60 seconds, don't fall out of phase. Lynn didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her body knew. Her bones remembered. Earth had never been defenseless. Earth had memorized the invaders. They knew Sular eyes couldn't track chaotic, non-linear movement. They knew gravitational dampeners could be overridden by biokinetic feedback. And they knew one thing no empire ever suspected: humans didn't run from war. They ran to start it. The observation deck lights flickered. "Sir," Karax said tightly, "their movements are aligning with old ruin fields, zones we marked as dormant in our initial sweep." Krazek turned. "Meaning?" "They're not just running. They're activating something." Outside the hull, Earth's crust pulsed faintly. At first glance, it looked like heat distortion, then something worse. Old glyphs glowing through layers of concrete, metal, and dust. Krazek's voice lowered. "That tech is Dominion era, 15,000 cycles old. They've repurposed our relics, sir. They're using our embedded lattice work." Krazek stared at the readouts, and they triggered it by running. In a desert trench outside the ruins of Nevada Sector 3, a bearded man tapped his wristpad as 20 runners passed by in unison. Dust howled across the dryscape. A voice crackled in his comms. "Confirmation?" He grinned. "Phase velocity stable. All nodes lighting up. Energy sink at 91%. This thing's gonna hum like a war drum." "Final call?" He looked up. The alien fleet was visible now, silhouettes blotting out the clouds. He pressed the pad, let them watch. Back on the Virex Ultima, the screens flashed. The kinetic readings spiked, ground tremors, atmospheric flickers, spatial compression anomalies, and still, the humans ran. "Commander," Karax whispered, "this is no evacuation. It's an execution." Krazek's throat tightened. The humans, once scattered and slow, now moved with uncanny coordination, entire populations sprinting like relay systems, triggering a global resonance. Then a broadcast came through, low frequency, human-coded, a single voice, calm, confident, initiate, kinetic sync. They're watching. Let them. The lights died, and from orbit, the aliens finally understood. They weren't watching a species flee. They were watching a planet wake up. By the time they realized it wasn't a retreat, half their fleet was already too close. Static screamed across the VirX Ultima's long-range sensors as seismic waveforms from Earth climbed into the red. Below, humanity wasn't collapsing, they were accelerating. Every stadium, highway, and ruined crater had become a conduit of motion. Lieutenant Karax stumbled back from the console. There's no pattern to this. Yet it's everywhere, every continent, every zone. No central command, Krazek snapped. No, sir, but there's timing. Like they're all following the same invisible clock. On screen, humans leapt rooftops, dived into flooded subways, vaulted over destroyed bridges. Thousands moved with ruthless synchrony, like dancers in a death march no one else understood. And still, they were smiling. Krazek's claws flexed. Order orbital descent. We break them before this chaos infects the outer colonies. Sir, Karax said carefully, what if it's not chaos? Beneath the scorched surface of East Asia, hidden under centuries of rock and ruined soil, something awakened. They called it Node Zero. It hadn't hummed in over 11,000 years, but now it did. Not because it received a signal, because it felt one, a seismic sync. Thundering kinetic pulses matched in real time by millions of human feet pounding the ground above. Node Zero did not need understanding. It only needed motion. And motion, it received. Circuits long dormant sparked to life. Energy spread like wildfire across ancient buried lattices, the remains of a failed solar colonization attempt, long before they ever claimed Earth as uncharted. Now, the humans had finished what the ancients started, and they did it by running. Hi. Marshal Krazek watched as parts of Earth's crust cracked open, not from damage but from design. Old architecture surged upward, rising like the bones of a sleeping god. What is this madness? The answer came from an unexpected source, an elder diplomat from the back of the command deck, speaking softly in a dialect few still used. It is the dance of the flame. Krazek turned sharply. Explain. In the earliest Dominion conquests, we implanted dormant structures across certain Class 5 planets, energy vaults keyed to resonance. We abandoned the technology, too unstable, too unpredictable, and no species ever figured it out. Not one. They didn't live long enough, until now. In South America, deep in the rainforest ruins of an ancient hydro factory, Corporal Anya Chen burst through a wall of vines. Her suit read her movement and transmitted a pulse every 3 seconds, part of the sync. 10 others joined her. Grid's warming, one soldier said, breathless. Good, Anya replied. They're following us down here, right? Yeah, they think we're lost, Anya smirked. Perfect. She sprinted forward and touched the glowing stone slab now shimmering with kinetic energy. Behind them, a group of solar shock troopers charged into the ruins and were instantly shredded by the ancient walls, collapsing inward in a blur of motion-triggered force fields. The humans never looked back. Above the Atlantic, 3 Dominion warships lowered into low-atmo formation. Their hulls gleamed with weapon arrays, confident in superiority. Then the ocean below rose, not with water, but with human ships. Black, jagged silhouettes burst from below the surface. Old escape pods? No. These were cradles, the kind that incubated second-stage plasma cores, ships designed to look harmless, until activated by sprint-level kinetic input. One alien pilot screamed, "Those aren't relics, they're warcraft." Too late. The ocean exploded with lightning. On the VirX Ultima, Karax tried to stabilize the command interface. Sir, we're detecting Resonance trails across all major tectonic plates. The humans triggered everything, using synchronized biological input. Krazek's voice dropped to a whisper. They turned their species into a key. Then came the second human broadcast. Shorter this time. Darker. Retreating isn't fear. It's warning. In Kenya, an alien command crawler chased 2 human operatives through cracked ruins. One stumbled. The alien pilot laughed, firing, except the human hadn't tripped. He had slammed both fists into the ground, triggering a pressure node buried 2 centuries deep. The crawler vanished in a column of light, atomized instantly. The runner stood. Next. Phase complete, he muttered. Back on the command deck, Krazek stood still. This wasn't war, it wasn't rebellion. It wasn't even defense, it was unfolding. Like the humans had written an entire planetary algorithm in motion, and were now executing it with their own bodies. Why? He finally asked. Why run at all? A junior officer, barely audible, said, maybe because they knew we'd follow. The galaxy feared our weapons. They never considered we'd turn the planet itself into one. They thought they'd mapped every anomaly on Earth. The Solar Dominion had deployed millions of microdrones, deep scanners, even phase radar to scan the crust. And yet not a single reading prepared them for what rose next. It began in silence. Not destruction, awakening. Across every continent, the ground stirred with unnatural precision. Great tectonic plates didn't quake. They clicked, like puzzle, pieces snapping into place. Crimson light poured from fault lines that hadn't moved in centuries. In North Africa, obsidian spires broke through desert sands. In Eastern Europe, cathedral-like engines rose from beneath ruins. Entire islands shifted as circular mechanisms spun beneath the oceans, exposing teeth-like ridges of ancient gears, spinning, grinding, thinking. They hadn't been buried, they'd been sleeping. High Marshal Krazek gripped the railing as Earth's surface erupted into patterns no natural world could form. Thousands of symbols appeared, massive, glowing, visible from orbit. Glyphs, older than the Dominion, older than the current galactic calendar. The symbols matched one thing in the archives. Project Tyriax, Forbidden Kinetics. He staggered. That project was erased? No, whispered Karax. It was abandoned, left to rot on backwater worlds. Krazek's jaw clenched. And the humans built on top of it. Not just built, Karax said, voice trembling. They understood it. In a hidden chamber beneath Mount Ararat, a group of human engineers stood around a pulsing pillar. Ancient writing glowed on the walls, and streams of data poured across their visors, streaming in from runners still in motion across the globe. Sync. Rate holding at 97.4%, one muttered. Is that even possible? Asked another. Their leader, an old woman with silver hair and dirt-streaked boots, didn't look up from her console. We studied the Dominion's tech. Your ancestors dropped it here like garbage. We dug it up, spent generations deciphering it, rewriting it, correcting it. She ran her fingers along the pillar. They called it unstable. We made it inevitable. Atop a ridge in the Andes, Dominion shock troops surrounded a village, preparing to level it, until the ground split beneath their feet. Not in chaos, but with mechanical precision. The soil peeled back, revealing an enormous turbine, silent for millennia, now spinning. Then, it spoke. The turbine emitted a subsonic pulse that shattered every solar eardrum within 2 kilometers. None of them got back up. The humans didn't fire a shot. Aboard the Virax Ultima, command interfaces screamed with warnings. Planetary energy. Readings surpassed stellar thresholds. AI cores shut down to avoid overheating. Krazek barked orders, but the systems no longer responded. It's overriding us, Karax said, pale. Their motion patterns weren't just biological. They were input, a language. Krazek stared. They're not just running on Earth. No, sir. They're programming it. In a research base on Luna's dark side, a group of alien scientists watched with horror as lunar soil began to react to the same motion signatures. Somehow the synchronization signal had reached even the moon's surface, where humans had embedded reactive conductors centuries ago. One researcher ran toward the exit, the walls folded inward, silently. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Lynn Alvarez stood atop an ancient tower of dark alloy now revealed in New Zealand's wilderness. She pressed her palm against the central node, an interface built from Dominion scrap, rebuilt by human hands. "Final phase ready," said the AI in her ear. "Wait for signal," Lynn replied. Above her, alien ships hovered, unsteady. Below her, runners continued their paths, feeding momentum into the world-spanning lattice, all connected, all running, not away, not toward through. In the Solar homeworld's deep archives, alarms triggered for the first time in 12,000 years. Forbidden warnings flashed: kinetic protocol breach, origin point Earth. One ancient AI, once part of Project Tyriax, flickered back to life. Its only message: the humans completed the machine. "Back on the Virex Ultima," Krasek whispered, almost prayer-like. "We thought they were primitives." "They were mechanics," Karak said, "and we gave them broken gods to fix." Krasek turned to the stars. "How many other machines did we abandon, and how many runners will it take to awaken them?" Silence answered. And below, Earth continued to hum, its heartbeat now aligned with every footstep, every sprint, every human pulse across the surface. It wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was a reactor, a living, breathing weapon. And it had just come online. The mistake wasn't attacking Earth. The mistake was letting humans study your weapons first. The Dominion never feared ignorance. It was curiosity that terrified them. Ignorance could be conquered, controlled. But curiosity, that was the spark that built machines out of nothing. That was what made the humans dangerous, and now that spark had become wildfire. In the orbital silence above Earth, the Dominion's battle group began to fracture, not from external fire, but internal collapse. Their guidance systems screamed conflicting data, trajectories bent mid-flight. Engine cores overheated in perfect synchronization, as if infected with precision. They weren't under attack, they were being unwritten. Admiral Silas, commander of the Terran suborbital fleet, watched from a war room buried under Iceland's crust. Dozens of projection tables floated around him, each showing Dominion ships blinking out, their own weapons misfiring in beautiful, horrific choreography. A lieutenant turned. "Sir, kinetic echo has spread to Martian and Venusian grids. Old relay points just lit up." Silas cracked his knuckles. "They installed dampeners to control us," he said. "We turned them into speakers." Meanwhile, in the ruins of an old university under Tokyo, a human scientist traced Dominion glyphs with chalk dust and grease. Beside her sat 3 children, no older than 10, connecting old circuit fragments into a pulsing crystalline array. One of them looked up. "This was meant to kill us, right?" The woman smiled. "No, sweetheart, this was meant to erase us. We just flipped the circuit." Outside, a Dominion cruiser plummeted from the sky, its AI strangled by a signal it once considered obsolete: human motion sync. On the Virex Ultima, panic had shattered protocol. "We've lost 38 ships," Karax shouted. "No enemy fire. No boarding. They just turned off." Krazek's claws gripped the rail. "How?" A whisper came from the communication vault. "You let them learn." Krazek turned. It was one of the archivists, a data keeper barely acknowledged until now. They watched. They listened. For generations. They studied our frequencies, reverse-mapped our grav nets, copied our decay patterns, and stored it all in inert matter. Everything we thought was too complex for them. He gestured to Earth, now glowing like a machine core. They understood it better than we did. In a frozen trench near Siberia, Dominion troops moved through whiteout fog until their weapons began vibrating. Seconds later, their own rifles folded inward, crushed by gravitational pulses that matched precisely the kinetic pace of nearby runners. A Dominion captain shouted, "What is this? What's happening?" And from behind a snowbank, a lone human emerged, coat tattered, bleeding, but smiling. "You tried to teach us fear," she said, raising her hand. And all we learned was math. On Europa's mining colony, a human technician reactivated, a terraforming array abandoned for decades. Except this time it didn't adjust soil. It emitted pulse feedback synced to Earth's runners. Dominion satellites blinked offline. Hydrocores ruptured, and one by one, Dominion-owned moons began to fall silent. Back on Earth, Commander Lynn Alvarez stood beneath the sky as it lit with Dominion wreckage. "We're not fighting a war anymore," she said, pressing her hand to the core tower. "This is reclamation," the AI voice in her helmet replied softly. "Reclamation complete. System control, humanity." In the Dominion's central archive, light years away, an alarm triggered that had not been activated in millennia. Code, resurgence, designation, Earth status, ascendant. The High Empress of the Solar Dominion stood frozen as reports came in. Humans were no longer reacting, they were orchestrating. They had turned old prisons into nodes, obsolete weapons into orchestral triggers. Dead, worlds into relays, and silence into music. The humans weren't just running anymore. They were conducting the war. On the Virex Ultima, Krasek gave the final command he never imagined: withdraw. But the order came too late. All around Earth, the kinetic grid reached final phase. Human runners stopped, and the planet exhaled. The Dominion fleet shook, not from energy, but from being seen. Earth had broadcast its full activation signature across 17 sectors. The signal didn't ask for mercy. It declared ownership, and the stars began to shift. When the humans stopped running, their weapons didn't. It was supposed to be over. The Dominion's analysts had a term for what just happened: planetary defiant surge, a last gasp from a cornered species. Violent, impressive. Ultimately, short-lived, but Earth hadn't gone quiet. It had gone mobile. In the void between Earth and Luna, where broken Dominion wreckage drifted like steel corpses, something else moved. Not ships, not escape pods. People. Thousands of human bodies hurtled through low orbit in black exosuits. No engines, no signals. Just synchronized propulsion from grav boots and ancient launch tubes reawakened by the kinetic grid. "Are those runners?" a Dominion scout whispered from his shattered deck. "Yes," someone muttered, "and they're not coming back down." Inside a shattered cargo freighter repurposed as a command shell, Admiral Silas hovered over a transparent war table. Dots flickered across Earth's orbital layer. New human signals were igniting across the Moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. "These are civilian pings," his comms officer said, stunned. "Factory workers, miners, farmers. How are they moving with military precision?" "Because we never trained soldiers," Silas said. "We trained runners. Everyone else just forgot what that meant." A new alert pinged. "Venus sync achieved." Silas smiled. "Good. Let's see if the gods can outrun the species they woke." Dominion Command, vessel Tsarek Vox, arrived above Ganymede 2 hours later, only to find the mining colonies gone, not destroyed. Missing, rearranged, crater. Walls had collapsed in perfect symmetry. Metallic shards floated midair, held in a field of motion-generated gravity. And standing in the center, a single human operative waved up at their observation cams. He was jogging in place. The Tsarek Vox opened fire. The feedback pulse from the gravitational sink fried all its systems before the plasma even reached the surface. Then came the voice, calm, cruel, pre-recorded. "When we ran, you laughed. When we stopped, you prayed. Now we're here to chase." Across the galaxy, sensor arrays picked up the ripple, not just on Earth, not just on human colonies, but on every abandoned Dominion world that once bore kinetic infrastructure. One by one, they lit up, reactivated by distant echo pulses traveling faster than conventional signals. Motion turned into momentum. Momentum became range. Even dead planets answered, and on each of them, the humans were already there. High Empress Tyleron of the Dominion sat on her obsidian throne, arms trembling. Why didn't we erase it all? Her advisor swallowed hard. Because we thought no one else would survive long enough to understand it. And we let them run? The advisor said nothing. Somewhere deep beneath her throne chamber, ancient Dominion servers began to hum. They weren't responding to her voice. They were sinking to a step count. Commander Lynn Alvarez drifted through Martian orbit, her suit faintly glowing with charge. Below, the red surface pulsed like a heartbeat, dust rising in symmetrical spirals. Europa just lit up. Her comms buzzed. The ice cracked in a perfect ring. The old mining subsystems are awake. Estimated strike. Radius 900 kilometers. Lynn didn't flinch. How many runners do we still have off-world? Over 80,000. Most never stopped. Lynn looked up at the stars. Good. Send the signal. In deep space, a Dominion scout station near the edge of the Drazian Nebula flickered with warning lights. The station master leaned forward. What? Now? His officer pointed to the motion scanner. Something's running. Out there. Outside, against the stars, hundreds of pinpoints of light streaked forward. But they weren't missiles. They were humans, encased in custom grav pods, launched from kinetic cannons hidden inside asteroid belts. Each pod spinning, building energy, aiming with impossible precision, and they were closing fast. Back on Earth, the kinetic grid still pulsed, but now no one was running. They didn't have to. Because the signal had spread. Because movement was now legacy. Because what runs also hunts. And somewhere, on the edge of another galaxy, an alien technician stared at a radar that shouldn't have worked, watching ghostly pulses approach from a star humanity wasn't supposed to reach. And on it, 3 words blinked in quiet. Blue. We are coming. They watched us run but never asked what we were running from. They should have asked what we were running toward. The Dominion had always believed war was something you launched. A broadcast, a declaration, a formation of fleets, a volley of demands, and a trail of wreckage. They never imagined a species would answer war with motion. Never imagined that a coordinated jog through ruined cities could outmaneuver gravity cannons. Never imagined that every boot print was a keystroke, writing code into a buried ancient machine older than their entire civilization. They never imagined that when the humans ran, it meant the universe would too. In orbit above Kepler 7X, a Dominion remnant fleet waited, hidden in a magnetic shroud. Commander Atrax clutched a glass sphere of static data, a final archive of known human behavior. None of it helped. Across the galaxy, Dominion colonies had gone dark, not from direct assault but from sabotage by anticipation. Every node, every relay, every listening post synced by micro-movements years in the making. They weren't building weapons, Atrax said to no one. They were building timing. A young officer turned, pale. Sir, they found us. What? They're not here yet, but we've received a pulse. A what kind of pulse? A heartbeat, sir. It's not ours. The floor beneath them shuddered. The stars outside shifted. And then they arrived. No grand ships. No monstrous fleets. Just hundreds of glowing pods opening mid-drift. Humans stepping out mid-vacuum, wrapped in motion-stabilized suits, already sprinting across the gravity shield, laughing. The last thing Atrax saw was a woman flipping backward, mid-air, tapping her heel to the hull, and then everything turned white. On Earth, the kinetic grid finally stilled. After weeks of motion, of synchronized footsteps, of ancient tech brought to life by rhythm and sweat, the planet exhaled. Commander. Lynn Alvarez stood beneath the southern sky, watching the stars flicker with reports from across the galaxy. Every flash was a strike, every flicker a surrender. Is it done? Her comms asked. No, she whispered. It's remembered. At the edge of the galaxy, a quiet archive drone hovered outside the ruins of Dominion space. Its sole job, to record final moments for post-war historians. Its last recording was short, A lone human stood on a broken tower, overlooking what remained of the Solar Dominion's capital. The wind carried ash. The stars were quiet. No ships chased, no soldiers marched, just one man in a black jacket, breathing calmly. He looked at the drone, and he smiled. "You watched us run," he said softly. "You thought it was fear. You thought we were weak." He turned, pointing to the sky where Dominion banners once flew. "We weren't fleeing." He tapped his temple. "We were calculating." The drone's lens flickered. "You should have watched closer." The feed cut out. In every surviving corner of the galaxy, the message repeated, "If you see a human run, don't follow. Don't chase. Don't wonder why. Just pray they're not running toward you." And so the legends were rewritten. No longer was Earth the backwater. No longer were humans dismissed as chaotic and soft. Now they were something else. Something whispered about in dark command centers. Something that never came directly. They arrived with no warning, only footsteps and smiles. And as for the Dominion, there was no treaty. No memorial, only dust, only silence, only the memory of a mistake. They watched, but they never understood, until the running stopped, and everything else did too.